The Appalachian Trail had always felt familiar to me, a place where people walked for days and still felt connected to the world, which is why I wasn't worried when thick fog rolled in during a solo stretch through West Virginia. The trail faded into white, trees becoming shapes without edges, sounds dull and distant, and I slowed my pace, telling myself fog was normal, something every hiker learns to walk through eventually. At first it felt peaceful, the world reduced to a few feet of visibility, my footsteps steady and controlled, the rhythm familiar enough to trust. Then I heard footsteps ahead of me, not close, but not far either. I called out once, a simple greeting, and the footsteps stopped immediately. I waited longer than I should have, telling myself the other hiker had probably paused to listen, just like I had. When I started walking again, the footsteps returned, matching my pace exactly, step for step, no matter how I slowed or sped up. The fog thickened, swallowing trail markers until only faint flashes of white paint appeared on tree trunks, each one harder to spot than the last. At the bottom of a shallow dip in the trail, I saw someone standing there, a hiker with a backpack, facing away from me. Relief washed over me so quickly it almost hurt, the tension draining from my shoulders all at once. I called out again. They didn't turn. I stood there longer than I should have, telling myself they hadn't heard me through the fog. That sound carried strangely in weather like this. That was when I noticed something wrong. The pack straps hung loose. There were no shoulders beneath them. The fog shifted slightly, and the figure seemed thinner, less solid, as if it were being held together by the mist itself. Behind me, the footsteps stopped. Ahead of me, the figure began to move, not along the trail, but off it, stepping calmly into thicker fog without hesitation. For a moment, I felt the pull to follow, to stay close, to not be alone in the white silence. Then footsteps started behind me again, closer than before, heavy enough that I felt them through the ground. I ran. Branches tore at my arms, roots caught my boots, and the fog seemed to close in tighter the faster I moved, the trail bending in ways that made no sense. I don't remember how long I ran, only that eventually the fog thinned, then lifted, and the trail reappeared beneath my feet like it had never been gone. I stood there shaking, lungs burning, afraid to turn around. I finished that trek early and went home, but even now, when fog settles thick on a trail, I slow down, because sometimes it feels like the path remembers everyone who ever walked it, and some of them are still walking, just out of sight, waiting for someone to follow. I had always wanted to trek in the mountains of Colorado, not because I was chasing danger, but because I trusted marked trails, clear signs, and the idea that walking with a group meant nothing could really go wrong. When I finally got the chance, I joined a small guided group planning an overnight trek along a high-altitude trail known for wide views and sudden weather changes that locals mentioned casually, as if they were normal and unimportant. There were 6 of us, plus the guide, strangers connected by similar boots, similar backpacks, and the quiet confidence that comes from believing you are not alone. The first day passed easily, the air thin but manageable, the trail winding through open ridges where you could see for miles, and every so often, we stopped to drink water and look back at how far we had climbed, pointing out landmarks, and in a way that made the mountains feel welcoming. By evening, we reached a campsite tucked between rock faces that blocked most of the wind, and as the sun went down, the temperature dropped fast, the warmth of the day draining away until the cold settled into our hands and knees. Beyond the firelight, the mountains disappeared into darkness so complete it felt unnatural, as if the night had erased everything we could not see and left us alone in a small circle of light. We ate quietly, hands held close to the fire, and one by one, conversations faded as everyone grew tired, the silence growing heavier the longer it lasted. That was when I noticed the sound. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps, moving just beyond the edge of the light, careful enough to stay hidden, but close enough to be heard. I waited for someone else to react, telling myself it had to be one of us shifting around or walking toward their tent. But everyone was seated, faces calm, hands still, eyes fixed on the fire. The footsteps continued, circling the camp, never entering the light, never moving away, as if whoever was making them understood exactly how far to stay. Our guide stood, shone a torch into the darkness, and calmly asked if someone needed help, his voice steady in a way that suggested he did not want to scare us. There was no response. The footsteps stopped. That silence felt worse than the sound had, stretching out longer than it should have. That night, sleep came in short bursts, and every noise outside my tent felt intentional, as if something was standing just beyond the thin fabric, listening closely to my breathing. In the morning, we found footprints around the camp, deep impressions in the dirt, far larger than any of our boots, circling the fire pit the same way the footsteps had. The guide studied them quietly and told us to move out early, his tone firm enough that no one argued. As we trekked on, the feeling followed us, not as sound this time, but as pressure, as if we were being watched from higher ground, from places the trail never reached. At one point, I stopped to adjust my pack, fingers stiff from the cold and the straps twisted from the climb. And when I looked up again, the group was gone. The trail stretched forward in silence, and behind me, it curved out of sight, the wind suddenly loud in my ears. Then I noticed the trail split into two paths, both marked, both familiar, worn enough that either one could have been right. I stood there longer than I should have, telling myself they were just ahead, that I had only lost sight of them for a moment, that panic would only make things worse. That was when I heard my name. Not shouted, not whispered, but spoken calmly, from somewhere above me, as if the speaker had all the time in the world. I looked up and saw a figure standing on a ridge, still and balanced, watching. The figure raised an arm and pointed toward the left trail. For a moment, I almost followed. Then I noticed it had no pack, no gear, nothing that suggested it had been walking for hours like we had. I couldn't see its face, not because of distance, but because there didn't seem to be one. The voice said my name again, and familiar, as if it knew me well enough to wait. I stepped back. The figure did not move. I turned and ran the other way, calling out until my voice broke, lungs burning, branches scraping my arms as if trying to hold me. Eventually, I heard real voices ahead, and the group found me asking where I had gone. The guide didn't ask what I had seen. He only made sure no one walked alone for the rest of the trek. Years later, I read about hikers who followed voices off marked trails and were never found. Sometimes, when the world is quiet enough, I swear I can still hear my name being called from somewhere above me, waiting to see if I will listen this time. Slowly.